Welcome to Real Stories MKE, brought to you as part of X-Fabula's mission to connect Milwaukee through real stories. I'm Joel Dresang.
And I'm Kim Shine. X-Fabula believes that everybody has personal stories worth sharing, so they run storytelling workshops to help people build their skills and their confidence. And X-Fabula also holds story slams where folks tell their true personal tales on stage. In this episode of Real Stories MKE, we are sharing 4 of those remarkable stories.
That's right. Our theme this episode is caring. It's one of the most impactful things we can do for someone. It often involves sacrifice, but sometimes it's as simple as just showing up and letting someone feel seen and heard.
That's important.
Yes, it is. And it's also important to care for yourself, and we'll have stories about that in this episode.
Oh my gosh, when we talk about self-care, that is definitely a theme of 2026 for me.
Yeah,
okay?
And it's the whole thing of, when you're flying with somebody and the masks come down.
First, okay?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Our first caring story in this episode comes from Linda Nwumeh, who recalls her childhood quest to care for a pet. Here's Linda.
Okay, so I've always loved pets. Growing up, my parents would not let me get any of the pets that I wanted. So no cats, no dogs, nothing like that. So naturally, me and my sister started to do a lot of YouTube research, right, as kids do. So we wanted to basically make sure that whatever worries our parents had about us getting pets, they wouldn't be able to come up with a counter argument, right? So we're like, okay, it has to take up a little bit of space, it's got to be quiet, it's got to be fun, it's got to be cuddly. So naturally we came up with the idea of getting pet rats. So we looked everything up on YouTube. We're like, okay, we got to be able to do it kind of DIY. It can't cost that much money. So we looked up how to build the cages and everything, the cheapest ways to construct everything. And we basically came up with this proposal for our parents, how are we gonna get these rats, right? Thankfully, there was a really small pet store near our house, and this should have been a red flag, right? It was this tiny pet store, and it was just really tucked off in the corner. You wouldn't even know it was there, right? And so we went in there one day and we saw, wow, these pet rats, they're 45 cents. What a steal! So we're like, okay, there's no excuse. We need to pick them up, right? So we picked up these, and it was weird because we went to go get these rats. We had probably had $2 and got change back, right? And then, we bought them, and then the store owner was kind of looking at us strangely because they also sold pythons, and we didn't make the connection though. We were like, okay, we just got these, we just picked up these rats, and we were the happiest people in the world. We had our little box, and we just took them home, and then we got our little DIY supplies. We had this, this big plastic container. I don't even know where we got this stuff from, just these grates we put on top of it, and we just kind of cobbled this thing together, and we put the rats in there, and our parents were I guess our proposal was too clean, right? They couldn't really okay, you got them, right? So but we should have known those rats, they weren't looking quite right, honestly, they weren't. But I mean, we found later on. So we put everything together. They were in the cage, and my sister was like, okay, they're here. They look so nice, so cuddly. Went to put her hand in the cage. That rat bit her finger so badly, oh my goodness, yeah. But we weren't deterred. I was like, that's okay. Of course it's nervous, right? Right, of course. I mean, this is its first day. What did you expect? So yeah, over the course of the few days, we tried everything we could to make the rats feel more comfortable. But unfortunately, around that 2 to 3 day mark, we went and looked in the cage that next morning. Neither of them were there. They were gone. The rats were gone, right? And yeah, we found them about, I think we found them maybe a day and a half later. They both just had crawled off into some corner of our basement, and they were dead. They had some disease, clearly. And yeah, I mean, it's a pretty sad story, actually, thinking back. But yeah, I guess the moral of this story is like, if you go to a pet store, the rats are 45 cents. Don't buy them. Yeah, that's it.
That was Linda Nwumeh, who shared her story at a 2024 X Fabulous Story Slam with the theme Lost. That was quite an adventure.
Yeah, man. Now, many of us have been influenced by caring that we received from educators. And our next story comes from Isaiah Raziel Furquan, who, as a young teacher, learned about trying to care for a student who didn't want to be taught. Here's Isaiah.
For the majority of my life, I have been working in some type of form of public speaking or public engagement. Ever since I was a very, very small child, my mom was always engaged in the community, always working to further wherever she is. And she always taught us that as long as you knew how to read, you can teach yourself anything, you can move and do anything, and learn anything, and be whoever you want to be. Because of that, I've been in many positions to speak, talk, and teach youth. And most recently, I've been working with a nonprofit organization called Still Waters Collective in the city of Milwaukee over the past maybe 8 or so years. And during that time, I was given the opportunity to teach a lot of youth from middle school to high school about not only writing poetry and creating art, but learning that you are an individual and learning about what that means and what it means to be an individual, a part of the larger groups. We're all a part of bigger groups, whether we notice it or not, whether it comes from race or the fandoms that you're in because of the TV shows that you watch or the books that you like to read or just the places that you like to gather. And that is something that I try to impart with all my students. Now, I have a very specific student I would like to talk about today. A couple years ago, I was working at a middle school here in the city called Lincoln. I was going there for about 8 weeks. Normally these residencies lasted between 4 and 8 weeks. I would go into different schools, and I would be there for about an hour with each class. Sometimes I'd be there with one class, sometimes I'd be there to teach 3 different classes, but I only get the chance to interact with these students for 60 minutes a week for a couple of weeks, and then I'm expecting them to come back and know the things that I taught them last week and keep paying attention and learning about it. As many people know, being people who were in classrooms at one time, or maybe you've taught in a classroom, the attention span of the whole class is very, very split up, right? If we split it up, we have about 50% of the students totally engaged, totally working, listening to every word I have to say. Then we have another 20% of the students who are kind of following along, but also are whispering over here, talking to this person, this and that. Then we have another 15% are students that have actively decided that they would not like to participate today, which is fine. And being an educator, you have to learn that sometimes you can't give all your energy to the students that have opted to not participate, because then you can't teach the whole lesson to everyone else. So I always give them the option to come back in whenever they like to, but I have to keep teaching the lesson, right? Then we always have that very small percentage of students who not only don't want to do what's happening here, but they don't want it to be easy for everybody else to do what's happening here, right? So this student's name was DeAndre. DeAndre, as most of these students are, is a very charismatic character, right? He says something, everybody's ears in the class start bending that way. And a lot of times it is disruptive, funny, sometimes intelligent, but not really on task, right? So for about the first 3 or 4 weeks, I come in every day to the classroom, ready to teach. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, DeAndre's going to be here. Just got to be ready for this. Just got to be ready to deal with this and make sure that this doesn't become a problem for everyone here. I kept working that way and kept working that way. But eventually, it got to the point where I was coming to the classroom and I had this thought where I'm like, I hope he's not here. I hope he's not here today. Oh, I hope he's not here today. He's going to make this hard. This is going to be harder than last time. But eventually I had to really take a moment, really take a second to think about how I was becoming, the way I was starting to feel, and realize that it isn't fair. It isn't fair for me to feel like, oh, this child is going to be here when I'm coming in. It isn't fair for me to have this idea when I have not yet created the space, maybe, that he needs to grow and participate. So I had to check myself and take the time to, on our following week, take 5-10 minutes after class to talk to DeAndre. And from that, I was able to speak with him and let him know where I was coming from as an educator, why I needed us to pay attention, and why I thought this stuff was important for him. All right? He said he got it. I said, okay. And we moved on. And honestly, he got a little better, but not a lot changed in those next few weeks, right? Fast forward 3-4 years, I'm walking into a high school now, and I see DeAndre. And I say, hey, DeAndre, what's going on? How's it going? He catches up with me, and he starts telling me about how he really felt unseen in middle school. He really felt like nobody was giving him attention, care, like he wasn't able to be himself. And after our conversation, he said that he was able to not only feel like he could be himself around others, but using poetry, he found a way to have his voice heard in a positive manner, in a way to change the way that he thinks about the world and how the world has to see him. So, to wrap it all up, in conclusion, I had to, which we sometimes have to do, I had to take a moment and take some action against myself to correct a mentality that I was subconsciously creating, because it was becoming an issue not only for myself, but for the people I impact in the world. So, thank you.
All right, now Isaiah spoke at a 2020 Exfabula outreach event at the Martin Luther King branch of the Milwaukee Public Library. And we have an update from Isaiah too, because we always love updates.
I love that.
As far as it goes, he's working on a book. Title is coming soon, still writing and sharing his stories and poetry, and open to bringing them where needed. So Joel, how about we do some ultra shorts?
Yes, let's. Tell us what those are.
Ultra shorts are short stories that if you are not participating in the theme or in the show, then you can get your story told by the hosts on stage.
Yes, and they're real brief, and that's why we call them ultra shorts. And
That's
I've got
right.
one right here that I selected especially for you. It's from Disgruntled Scorpio. As a Scorpio, I don't understand why we get a bad rap. We are caring, loving, generous, and fine. Justice for Scorpios. Because you're a Scorpio, right?
I am.
Yes.
I will give that all the love and praise and care and applause, all the things, because that is so true. We do get a bad rap, but we're awesome.
Well, also disgruntled, though. That's how that whole thing started.
Because don't people just want to get on our nerves. We got a lot of nerves. We're very nice. We're very nice. All right, so this one here is from Crystal. Crystal says, I create jewelry and other gifts for people I care about, a piece of myself that others can hold on to.
Here's an ultra short from Anonymous. I keep saying I need more physical activity for my mental health, but life gets busy. But last week, I got creative and hiked on rocks along the lake while my daughter ran along the path. Creative plus refreshing.
That definitely sounds like it. Ooh, I can't wait till the weather gets really, really, really warm so we can do that all the time. All right, so this is from Rebecca. Parenting 2 children with mental illness is exhausting. I'm a 24-hour lifeguard for my child. I also struggle with mental illness. So I decided to help myself with self-care activities. I make time for gardening, camping, sewing, swimming, volunteering. I hope I am an example for my children.
Yes. Besides teachers, medical professionals require a special capacity for caring. As a medical student, Weston Maier had his career path influenced by an unexpected moment of caring. He shared his story at an Ex-Fabulous Story Slam in 2017. Here's Weston.
The first 2 years of medical school are, like college plus. It's more lectures, more tests, more books. It's everything that an insufferable type A perfectionist is already used to. But at the beginning of your third year of medical school, you get thrown into a hospital, and it is sink or swim. It's fake it till you make it. It is a frightening time, and it is a magical time, because that is when you find out what you really want to do as a doctor. Everyone comes into medical school saying, I'm going to be a cardiologist, I'm going to be a neurologist, but it's not until you get into your third and fourth years, your rotations, and you see the reality of it, and that's what sells it to you. So many people do a complete 180 once they really see what the life is like. It's a very formative time, but one of the ways in that it's most formative is not necessarily figuring out what you want to do, but figuring out what you don't want to do. And I knew from the start that I didn't want to do surgery, but you have to take a surgery rotation. So I signed up for it first. My very first rotation, day one, I'm in the operating room. A little frightening. It was terrifying. It was 8 weeks of constant terror. But there was, I was fortunate enough that I ended up working my surgery rotation at the Children's Hospital, Wisconsin. There's something magical working about kids. I still didn't like the surgery, but it was cool enough because it was all novel, everything's new. And the kids were just so cute, right? And so one day I'm working my very first overnight shift. I'm going to be there until, like 11 the next morning. I'm overnight with my resident, and in the middle of the night in comes this darling 7-year-old girl, and she is like doubled over in pain. And she is just not feeling well. So my resident and I, we get called down to the emergency room to see her, to evaluate her for maybe it's appendicitis, right? So we go down and, we talk to her, we get the history, right? And we call up, our attending, who is a woman about half my size and terrifies me to this day. It is incredibly smart. And we call her down, we say, we give her the story, and we're like, we don't think it's appendicitis. And she says, whoa, wait. She comes in with pain here. She's not eating, she's throwing up, she has a fever, and her white blood cell count is elevated, and you're telling me she doesn't have appendicitis. And then my resident and I kind of look at each other, and I go, well, when you put it that way. Sheepishly, we end up taking her to the operating room that night, and you'll be happy to know that they don't let the medical students operate. But I did get to pilot the laparoscopic camera used, to see inside for the laparoscopic surgeries, and so I got to, take this girl's history in the emergency room. I, contributed, I like to think, to the surgery. I got to take pictures that I showed her later. I stole an EKG from a very reluctant emergency room physician when she passed out later, and I wanted to make sure her heart was okay. And 2 days later, I'm working during the day, and she's going to go home. She had her surgery. It went great. She is 100% better. And so I go into the room to tell her the good news. Like, you can go home now. And this little girl who is like been healthy her entire life and then just went through like probably the most traumatic 2 days of like pain and fear and surgery. She comes up to me, hugs me around the legs, looks up with these like big deer eyes, and then turns back to her parents and said, "Can't we stay one more day?" That's when I decided on pediatrics. Thanks.
That was Weston Maier, and we've got an update from him, too. So since he told that story, he completed his pediatrics residency in Buffalo, New York, and he's now in his final year of fellowship training for subspecialization into pediatric infectious disease at UCLA in Los Angeles. His wife, Victoria, is a neonatologist, and they have an infant son of their own now, and that son's almost a year old. And Weston says, "I promise the audience I am much more confident and competent in my medical ability than I was back when I told that story."
That's awesome. But you guys, you and
He
your wife,
sounded fine, yes.
you should be proud. You guys are helping change the
Oh,
world.
my goodness,
Okay?
yes.
You're making sure that care and self-care is happening.
Way to go.
So thank you. Our final story in this episode is from Mary Krawczyk. Now, after decades as a caregiver, as a mother, as a teacher of students with special needs, Mary reflects on the importance of caring for herself. Here's Mary.
So I guess my small win is really just being here tonight. I love telling stories. I love writing. I love making little videos and kind of just talking about things in life. But I don't do that enough. And back in 2018, I had done the Ex Fabula Fellowship, which that year I think was about fair housing. And it was thematic, and it was really an amazing experience. And it's something that I had wanted to stick with storytelling and being involved with Ex Fabula. But life came along. And that's where, like, there's this bigger piece, which is returning to ourselves. You know, I'm a 56-year-old woman. I spent most of my life raising my 3 children and being a teacher. I was always taking care of other people, and now it's like, is it time for me to take care of myself? And it is, and that is not just a small win, but a huge win. But I'm thinking of, like, a couple of years ago, I was having a therapeutic massage, and the practitioner was sort of doing some body work, and he's like, "Okay, Mary," but, you know, I was telling him about my life, and I was still teaching at the time. And my most recent teaching experience was as a special education teacher with first and second graders with pretty thank you with pretty significant and they had complex needs, right? But anyway, this practitioner said to me, "But who's holding you up, Mary?" And I just started sobbing, right? Like, because who is holding Mary up? But kind of to that bigger theme of you know, taking care of other people. I did leave the classroom in June of 2022 after the pandemic and just everything, like trying to teach nonverbal children on Zoom, right? Like, not possible. So it just kind of broke me. And at the same time, my own children were really, like, growing up and leaving the nest. And this whole concept of returning to myself has really been a strong theme. And last Friday, I went to this Creative Milwaukee Mornings. I don't know if you've heard of those events, or Creative Mornings Milwaukee. Amazing event. There was a speaker. She was an illustrator, and her whole talk was amazing. But when at the end, I was moved to tears. She said, "You know, if I don't illustrate again after today, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of what I've done." And I thought about myself, yes, thinking of my accomplishments of being a special education teacher and, you know, raising my 3 children, but also proud of myself for the things I do every day, for getting up and going to work, for trying to put kindness and love into the world, for telling stories, for being vulnerable. And so I made a little video, kind of a little story on my TikTok. Yes, I have a TikTok. I know. It's like, well, you're too old for TikTok. But I have it. So I made this little story about just going on a run, and after the run, and I'm all sweaty and gross, and I'm like making this video about I'm proud of myself. And so I think, again, I'm proud of myself. You all be proud of you. Be proud of the things that you do each day to make yourself and the world a better place. That's it.
And Mary Krawczyk shared that story at a 2025 Exfabulous Slam with the theme Small Wins. We've got an update from Mary, too.
Great.
She says, one relevant update is that I took a short story writing class at the university where I worked during the fall semester. That was a joyful experience that relates to my intention of caring for and returning to myself.
Hey, Kim, how about some more ultra shorts?
I would love to. What you got?
Here's one from Anonymous. I learned to take care of older people when I was young. I enjoyed it so much that I became a certified nursing assistant.
Oh, very nice.
That's nice.
This next one, the person says, many times I feel exhausted, empty, with nothing to give. But when I see sad people at the supermarket or at the doctor's office, waiting rooms, I just look them in the eyes and smile at them. It's kind.
That is. Here's an ultra short from Anonymous. Saving the planet is a tall order, and I'm not really doing it. But probably the most generous thing I've ever done was to live with and take care of my mother for 2.5 years when she had Alzheimer's. I helped save one human being's quality of life, and I think that mattered. In fact, I know it did.
Nice.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. This one is from Anonymous. After a breakup, I learned to take care of myself. I've been going to a therapist, and I've been doing activities that make me happy. I've been painting and reading, and this makes me happy.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of Real Stories MKE, but there are more stories where these came from. Exfabula has been around since 2009, and there are plenty more audio stories available at exfabula.org/radio.
And there's more storytelling on the way. The Exfabula website lists upcoming workshops and slams, so make sure you check it out and get involved and share some of your stories, whether it's on stage or, the little bitty shorts that Joel likes to call. You can keep up with Exfabula on Facebook and Instagram, and you can also keep up with Real Stories MKE wherever you get your podcasts.
And thanks to everyone who makes this program possible, including Exfabula staff, the storytellers, of course, producer Jasmine Gonzalez, and audio engineer Sam Woods. Thanks as well to funders of Exfabula programs, including Heart of Canal Street, Bader Philanthropies, Inc., the George F. Moss Foundation, Wisconsin Public Radio, and Exfabula members.
Yeah, and this is our last episode of this season, so this is our final sign-off. And I want you guys to make sure that if we have another season, that you come back and you listen and you tell more stories.
Keep listening. You'll hear more.
Yes, and keep telling them so we can choose from them and we can put them in more episodes. For Real Stories MKE, y'all, I am Kim Shine.
And I'm Joel Dresang. Remember, everyone has stories worth sharing. Think of telling yours.